Welcome to Cardinals Cover 2 with Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki. Cardinals Cover 2 is brought to you by Arizona Cardinals Podcasts. Visit azcardinals.com/podcasts. From the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, here's Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki.
Well, we hear it a lot, next man up, and it applies here on Cards Cover 2. Mike Jurecki not here. We welcome in Kyle Odegard of azcardinals.com because, as they say, Kyle, the show must go on.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to be here. I think maybe you can get me into the intro next time. I heard.
Wow, we're like seconds into this show,
you
and
have
you're
to guest
already
host
making
a
demands.
certain number of times before you get your name in it.
Yes, you are. Yes,
Like,
we'll
like
go
20
with that. times. Maybe a handful of times.
I mean, we'll see if I come back.
If you're good enough, or if you decide you want to come back. Is that what you're getting at?
I have to perform as well. You're right.
All right. Well, everyone knows who Kyle is, and everyone knows who K1 is. That's Kyler Murray. And we've established that Cliff Kingsbury is K2, and I'm trying to get K3 for you. And it's not really sticking very much, but we're going to do our best.
One of these things is not like the other. I think that's why. You got your star quarterback.
You're both involved in football.
You got your coach, and you got a writer/guest host.
A writer? Can we call you the writer just to see if someone else is paying attention to this episode of Cards Cover 2?
Right.
Darren Urban? I think we can go.
I mean, we can try K3. I don't think you've said it enough, but we'll give it a shot.
All right. We like to call him the director as well because of Cardinals Film Room. We thoroughly enjoy that.
Mm-hmm.
So the director, K3, Kyle Odegard.
Hey, anything you want to call me.
All right. It doesn't affect your pay, by the way.
Right. Yeah,
All right.
Sadly aware.
And we'll double it. How about that? From what you're making right now.
Right. Bring those checks.
All right. Without further ado, here on this Monday, let's take off and tell you what's ahead on the show here this afternoon. The offseason is done, at least the heavy lifting. So what can we take away from the past 5+ months? David Johnson shares what motivates him to put in the work here in the offseason. We've got a sneak peek at the latest episode of Cardinals Flight Plan. And, of course, your questions via social media. And for those watching us here on Facebook Live, hashtag CardsCover2, hashtag CardsCover2, using the number 2 to get involved in the show. Love hearing from the Bird Gang here on Cards Cover 2 every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That's still to come. But first things first, the news of the day. And the veterans are gone. The rookies, though, remain, and they'll actually be here through the 27th next Thursday before they're actually given some time off. And these 2 weeks, a little under 2 weeks, Kyle, very important for the rookies. Not a lot of on-field work, but there'll be some walkthroughs, some meetings, and it's also the development meetings that Anthony Edwards puts these rookies through, the Senior Director of Player Development, because now there is brand new problems, questions, issues that come up, and it's now, hey, you're in the real world, it's the NFL, but this is an important time to help with it at that transition.
Yeah, it's great because these guys are these elite athletes, and, in Kyler Murray's case, millions of people know who this guy is, but all these rookies are 21, 22, 23 years old, and I've been in a couple of those developmental meetings, and it's amazing that, like you said, these guys just don't have the life skills yet, and they don't know what direct deposit is and how, you get your first check is live and then you get direct deposit after that, and they're trying to figure out how that works. I went to jail with a group a couple years ago just for them to realize what path to take, and obviously they're in the NFL and things are going great right now, and just to realize the situation that they're in and how important it is to stay on the right track. And I think there's a lot of very good lessons that they get. Anthony Edwards does a great job with those guys, and a lot of them really enjoy learning a lot of different things, from investing with their finances to learning, there's certain things now that you're an NFL player, people are going to be tugging at you, asking you for different things. And it's a lot to manage. So it's important for them to get this off-field stuff as well as continuing to learn on the field.
And in college, you've got classwork, you've got homework, tests to study for, and then all of a sudden that all disappears. And there is a little bit more free time as far as time that is not already budgeted or planned out for you. Yes, you're in your playbook, but you do need to get away. And then all of a sudden, once that day is done at night or whatever, and you're put the playbook to a side, it's okay, now what do I do? I've got all this extra time that I've never had before. What do I do? And then, of course, as you said, the big thing is now all of a sudden you've got that paycheck. What do you do? How many friends all of a sudden come into your life, and how to manage all of that? It's great what the Cardinals do, and not every NFL team does this, but it's something that I don't think a lot of people understand and realize, just that this is just a step that is done not only here as rookies, but you have to keep doing this as well.
Yeah, it's great first advice. Obviously, you need to build off of it. They can't do everything for you. They're going to try to put you in position to succeed, and then it's up to the individual player to do so. But it's a good resource, and these guys are here for a long time too. They came right after the draft, and before that, they were doing a bunch of draft prep at the combine and working out. So it's a lot of work. They're here a lot longer than the veterans throughout the offseason, and I think a lot of them are looking forward to that break before camp. It's shorter for them, only a few weeks, so they have to kind of grind through these last couple of weeks at the facility, get their body back, and just rest up a little bit, and then it all starts again with the season right around the corner.
Yeah, it's amazing. We talk about there is no such thing as an off season in professional sports, and there really isn't outside of a couple of months here in July for a lot of these players before training camp begins at the end of July. Also, I want to let you know, for those that follow David Johnson and DJ Swearinger, over the weekend, both of those players held youth football camps. Johnson's was here in Phoenix, and he had a couple of his teammates join him, DJ Foster, Xavier Turner. Johnson actually took over the Cardinals Snapchat account over there on Saturday, and Swearinger, meanwhile, went back to his hometown of Greenwood, South Carolina, his high school, his 6th annual camp at his high school. And I thought this was pretty cool. The Greenwood mayor, Brandon Smith, actually surprised Swearinger, presented him with the key to the city, and proclaimed June 15th DJ Swearinger Day. And I don't know about you, Kyle, but I don't have a day,
Right.
let alone, in a single month. But I thought that was kind of cool. And there was he posted a picture, Swearinger, who's very active on Twitter and Instagram. Literally, he got the key, and the mayor showed up at his football camp. And again, Swearinger, very active, not only on social media, but active in his community as well.
It reminds me of Rashad Johnson, former Cardinal safety. He lives in he grew up in a small Alabama city, and they named a road after Rashad Johnson. I think it was Rashad Johnson Drive. And now DJ gets a key to the city. So, yeah, I think we're falling a bit behind. I'm from Gilbert, Arizona, if they want to give me a key or something.
An avenue away.
K3 Avenue.
There we go. How about that? We see you're catching on here.
Yeah, we'll see. Did you know that David Johnson wanted to be a PE teacher if football wasn't a thing?
I did not know.
Yeah, so he's very much in his element doing this sort of stuff. I've been to an event or two with him with kids. He does a tremendous job of coaching them through that stuff, and he really gets into it. So it's fun for him, I'm sure. And being a little kid, that's got to be a great memory of going to a star running backs camp and getting tutelage, and I'm sure they got pictures and autographs. So it's a lot of fun for a kid. You think back to doing that sort of stuff, and those are the type of memories that stick with
absolutely.
you 20, 30 years down the line.
Yeah, there are several Cardinals players will do this either here locally or back in their hometowns, but Johnson and Swearinger, just two more examples of the great work the Cardinals do within the community, and now they're asking for you, the Cardinals fan out there, to get involved as well. In honor of its 100th season, the NFL is inviting fans to join the Cardinals players, and the other teams in a volunteer initiative called Huddle for 100. The goal of the campaign is for NFL fans to donate 100 million minutes of time to help shape what our communities will look like for the next 100 years. Those fans that do donate will be entered for a chance to win a VIP experience at the Super Bowl in Miami and other great prizes. azcardinals.com/Cardinals Huddle for 100 for more information here as we continue here on this Monday afternoon from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center. One other note before we get into the so-called meat of the show. I want to pass along in case that fans out there might not have seen, but former Cardinals quarterback Josh Mccown, a tip of the cap to him. He announced his retirement earlier today, did so in a piece titled "One Heck of a Journey" on the Players Tribune. third-round pick of the Cardinals way back in 2002. Kyle over here was, 10 years old in 2002?
Come on, man. 17.
Okay, 17. But spent his first, not Kyle, but Mccown spent his first 4 seasons here with the Cardinals. Several great memories, but Mccown probably best known for one play in Week 17 back in 2003 against the Minnesota Vikings.
The season's on the line. 2 receivers left and right. Mccown takes the snap. He steps up. He's all by himself. Fires into the end zone. Caught! Touchdown! No! The Cardinals have knocked the Vikings out of the playoffs. I believe it was caught by Nate Poole.
Yes, it was caught by Nate Poole, who was honored himself because of that catch. The Vikings don't get into the playoffs. The Green Bay Packers do get into the playoffs. The Cardinals, instead of getting the first overall pick, now dropped to number 3rd overall, and that was the draft for Larry Fitzgerald. But one of the notes that I noticed today, while looking up McCown's numbers, that was his first career win as a starting quarterback, beating the Vikings that final game of the regular season, 18-17.
I think the domino effect of that play is just unbelievable, where you don't have the first pick. And I know it's been a debate whether you just take Larry Fitzgerald number 1 or if those quarterbacks, Eli Manning went number 1 and Phillip Rivers and Ben Roethlisberger were all in that draft. And it sounds like I wasn't covering the team, so I don't know the in and outs and what they were thinking, but I think to me it sounded like Larry Fitzgerald probably would have been the pick at number 1 anyways, but you just wonder, would that have caused them to go for a quarterback? And then clearly all of Cardinals history has changed and Larry's somewhere else. So just that one play, it's amazing, just kind of the butterfly effect of one pass.
It's funny that play, Nate Poole catches the ball. That game allowed the Green Bay Packers to get into the playoffs. I believe it was between Green Bay and Tampa Bay. We won. The Cardinals won, so the Packers go to the playoffs. So they invite Nate Poole up. They throw a parade for him. They give him a key to the city of Green Bay. And Josh McCown, his famous quote, they sent him a big basket of cheese. So he always joked that he said, yeah, Nate Poole got the key to the city, and I got bound up. So,
and another key to the city.
Yeah, that's 2 keys to the city here on this edition of Cards Cover 2. By the way, that was Paul Allen on the Vikings radio network, one of the all-time great calls in NFL history, unless, of course, you're a Vikings fan. But as we mentioned, and as Ohms brought it up, instead of the first overall pick in 2004 NFL draft, Cardinals in 2004 draft 3rd overall, select Larry Fitzgerald, and it was McCown that handed Larry Fitzgerald his first ever catch and his first ever touchdown.
Backs are in and I. Fitzgerald to the right, Johnson to the left. McCown back to throw, looking for Fitzgerald and throwing it to him in the end zone. Fitzgerald leaps. Fitzgerald catches it. It's a touchdown. The first career NFL score for Fitzgerald.
Dave Pasch on the play-by-play Cardinals and San Francisco 49ers. By the way, Fitz had 8 touchdowns in 2004 and the first of 116 for his career. McCown, in the Players Tribune piece, quote, he called himself a journeyman, and at 17 years in the league, 10 different teams. He was with the Jets last season, but you talk to teammates, you talk to people who have covered him. Not only a solid NFL player, I mean, you last 17 seasons in the league, I don't care what you're doing something right, but just who he was as a person off the field, a great teammate, and then someone who also was representative in the community as well.
And I've never talked to him, and I don't know him, but I've heard so many of those stories from you guys who knew him back then, and I know Darren will be doing stories to this day, and he can just text or call him, and Josh McCown will answer and give him a call right back. So it's a really cool thing to have that relationship, going back so many teams that, he could have long forgotten about his Cardinals tenure, but it seems like Josh McCown's a great guy. So pretty cool. Great career for him, and he's the type of guy is going to succeed whatever else he wants to do in life.
Well, and his next step in life, it was announced today, he's going to join ESPN as an NFL analyst, and he'll make his debut this coming Wednesday. Turns 40 next month, has a wife and 4 kids. But in this Players Tribune piece, quote, "I might not have turned out to be the franchise quarterback I set out to be back at Cardinals rookie camp, but I'm extremely proud of the career I had," unquote. And I'll echo that as well, because I know Darren has brought up his name, and even MJ, when the Cardinals have looked or been perhaps maybe looking for a veteran quarterback or a quarterback to be in that room, much like a Drew Stanton, where you have that veteran presence, someone who knows why they're being brought in, knows their role, so to speak, and is not going to cause problems, but more importantly, is going to help not only the other quarterbacks, but the entire offense and the entire team as well.
Yeah, once you get to around 30 years old and you haven't become that franchise guy, obviously you're going to be pegged as a backup. And he went in and had some really good years. The year in Chicago really stands out. He played really well there. But yeah, at that point, you need to be a guy that's going to be bought into the idea of your role. And ostensibly a team's going to bring in a draft pick or a guy in his second year, and there can't be friction there, or else it really torpedoes the chances of the young guy who they have high hopes for. So he did a great job in that role, and then every so often he would get his chance to play, and he did a really good job of keeping teams afloat and winning some games. So really the ideal backup, like he said, when you come into the league, you want to be the franchise superstar, but once you realize that might not come to fruition, understanding your role and becoming an asset to the team is important, and he did that with flying colors.
And that's sometimes even more difficult than becoming that franchise quarterback, is understanding that I'm in the league, but perhaps I'm not exactly where I want to be, but I'm okay with that. I've reached my ceiling, and now let me help everyone else along. It's psychologically, and everyone has an ego. For a lot of players, it's not easy to say, okay, I'm not quite good enough, but this guy over here is. Let me help him become that franchise quarterback or wide receiver or whatever position it might be.
And even a lot of those guys deep down may feel like they were dealt a bad hand, and they still have the talent to be that guy. But in that area, it is swallowing your pride a little bit and saying, okay, if the team wants me to have this role, I have to follow this role, or else, like you said, he wouldn't have been in the NFL at that age if he wasn't willing to be a mentor to guys. And there's so many young quarterbacks that he did mentor and really help their careers. So it's a testament to Josh, and a lot of backup quarterbacks that are still in the league have shown that ability to prepare themselves and be ready to win games if called upon, while still knowing that they don't want me to be the guy. They have their eyes set on somebody younger.
Greg,
Yes.
you mentioned that Josh parlayed his football career into a TV gig. I'd like to think that we kind of launched his career or training in that, at least. I'm not sure if you were hosting the shows yet, but he is the only known active player to come on the pregame huddle right before a game.
Wow, I did not know.
He literally, we used to do the pregame show down there on the floor, so he walked in. This is when he was playing with the Carolina Panthers. He wasn't a starter. I believe it was Cam Newton at the time, maybe even before that. But he came out. We said, hey, we just waved at him while we were on the air. So he comes back after getting changed, and he comes back to our set with cleats in hand. He was getting ready to go warm up. He has his headphones. He literally just comes up on stage, puts on a headset, and just starts rapping with us. We're like, wait, don't you have a game? I'm like, I'm afraid he's going to get in trouble or something. I'm like, what are you doing, man?
And he probably used that tape to get his new job.
That's what I'm saying. Hey,
Perhaps.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, yeah, just a great guy. But he also was a frequent visitor on Anquan Bolden's locker room show called Q-Tip. He was on there seemingly every week. He was great.
That story, Holmes, you told, I think, says a lot about Josh. And if anyone wants to know about Josh McCown, that right there, because he never forgot where he came from, never forgot everyone that helped him along the way, including just a couple of, broadcasters with the Arizona Cardinals. And again, congratulations to Josh Mccown, his family, and best of luck in his career moving forward. Again, joining ESPN as an NFL analyst, and that begins on Wednesday. As we come to you here on this Monday afternoon from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, and of course broadcasting in our Bose QC35s as we always do. Go to Bose.com for more information. A reminder, if you ever miss a show, you can download as a podcast via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play Music, TuneIn, and SoundCloud. And don't forget, all of your favorite Cardinals podcasts can be found at azcardinals.com/podcast. Also, tickets are available as well. Don't forget, week 1 right around the corner, azcardinals.com/tickets for all of your information for the 2019 NFL season. All right, let's kind of take a 30,000-foot view of the offseason here as the rookies are still in attendance, but as we talked about, the veterans are gone. We won't see them until late July at the start of training camp. And we're also going to piggyback, or as a polite way of saying, steal an idea that our colleague Darren Urban wrote about on Friday on azcardinals.com, and that is the top takeaways from the Cardinals 2019 offseason. He listed 9, didn't ask for my opinion or input. I don't know if he asked for yours.
Yeah, actually, a couple of mine
See, that's the difference
there.
between you and me. So was it a collaboration, or was just his ideas?
No, it was his. No, it was his ideas,
Okay.
and then he said, "Hey, you got any more?" So I shot a couple over to him, and they made the
They
list,
made the cut.
So yeah.
All right. Well, there was a couple that we want to highlight here, and then there's a couple that we want to single out as well. But I think the number one takeaway that everyone has, and if you don't, well, then I don't know what you're paying attention to. But Kyler Murray, number 1 overall draft pick, Cliff Kingsbury, the head coach, that marriage kind of solidified in April. And then what we've seen and what we've heard so far from them, and then from teammates, and then just are limited on being able to watch what they do during OTAs and minicamp. Yes, he is very athletic, and then walks with a bit of a aura about him. And it's not a cockiness, but when you have a young player come in and has already earned the respect of his teammates, fellow rookies, and the veterans, that's not always easy, yet here he is, and he is your quarterback week 1, and knock on wood, hopefully for the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah, he's like you said, he's got the swagger, and he should. He became the first guy ever to be drafted in the first round of the Major League Baseball draft and the NFL draft. The fact that he went top 10 in baseball and number 1 overall in football is incredible. Heisman Trophy winner, so he's coming in believing that he's going to do really well in the NFL, and that's what you want out of a quarterback, whether he's a rookie, whether he's a 10th-year guy. Like, it goes back to our discussion with Josh Mccown. No matter what, these guys think they're going to succeed, and time will tell if it works out, but like you talked about with his skill set, he clearly has everything you need in a quarterback to be successful. Once defenses throw things at him, I'd like to see, as far as mental processing, how he does. But growing up like he did with his dad being a quarterback guru, I think that helped him quite a bit, understanding coverages. He's going to see things he's not used to, and I think the windows are going to close a lot faster in the NFL than they did in college. But from a pure skill set standpoint, he's such a unique player. You do really have to go back to Michael Vick to think of somebody with the type of arm and the type of legs that Kyler Murray has.
And look, and Darren brought this up on his piece on azcardinals.com as well. No pads, no pass rush. You're not getting hit. There's no even an opportunity for you to be hit if you're the quarterback here in the offseason. So things are going to change a little bit in training camp. You get into the preseason and the regular season, we'll learn a lot more. But just from what we've seen and then how he handles himself and watching the flight of the ball, and I keep mentioning this because I've talked with MJ about it, you've got 4 quarterbacks, sometimes 5 different footballs being thrown during these drills, and without even seeing him, you can tell which football he threw just because of how tight the spiral is and then how much further that ball is going than anyone else's, and it's instant, it's quick, and that quick release that he has maybe become successful because now you're getting that snap and that ball is coming out so much fast that you don't have to worry about the outside edges or someone rushing you.
Yeah, that's definitely the hope, is you have such a quick passing game that you don't have to sit in there for 4 seconds and worry about the pass rush. I think a lot of that is his baseball background as far as arm strength and accuracy. He does have very good footwork, but when things break down, he can still get rid of the ball quickly and accurately, which a lot of guys don't have. And the fact that we're talking about how superior his arm is to the other guys, and then you throw in the fact that he's got this crazy speed too, because the knock on mobile quarterbacks is usually that they're ready to get out of the pocket and run, and they're not super accurate, and he's a guy who can really do both. So legitimately, the question is, can he read defenses? And when it comes to durability with his frame, if he gets hit a few times, can he stay healthy? And if he can check both of those boxes, you're talking about a guy who has, really all pro potential because of his skill set.
Now, if we're all being honest with ourselves, and I think we are, we remember that we said a lot of the same things a year ago about Josh Rosen, as far as how he handled himself, how quickly he was earning the respect of those in that locker room, and then he looked the part of an NFL quarterback. The one difference, and this is going to be significant, is the grasp of the offense, because it's an offense that Murray knows. He knows it all the way back in high school, and now he's got a head coach, a first-year head coach, who is basically tailor-making this offense for him, and that you couldn't say a year ago.
Yeah, and that was one of the toughest parts for Josh Rosen, learning a new offense. And we could tell it on the field. He was a half second slow figuring out his process. And in the NFL, that doesn't sound like a long time, but that allows the cornerbacks to jump your routes. It allows the edge rushers to get to the quarterback and sack him. So if Kyler Murray can be faster than that, then yeah, I think then as a rookie, you can really raise the ceiling. It shouldn't be too high because he's still a rookie and he's going to take his lumps like any rookie does. But like you said, when they're specifically tailoring the offensive system and certain plays to Kyler Murray's strengths, I think that's important, and I think it's a big deal, and I think it's very smart because this is the guy you just spent the number 1 overall pick on. You want him to succeed quickly, and to do so, just make him feel as comfortable as possible, and they're obviously doing that.
And despite all the success he's had in winning the Heisman Trophy, Murray knows that he has not arrived yet. He knows that he has only just gotten a small taste of what life is like in the NFL.
I feel like I haven't really even, kind of seen it all. Obviously, I haven't even, went live or, played in a scrimmage yet, stuff like that. So getting used to it right now, locker room and stuff like that, everybody around here. But for me, just taking it one day at a time, but I can't wait till, it's really on. So.
And he's not going to be asked to do it by himself either. And perhaps his biggest assistance will come from David Johnson. And I know in reading your work, Kyle, that, and a lot of people believe this the same way, that 2016, while not that far removed, seems like a lifetime ago when you're talking about David Johnson, a lost season in 2017 and maybe even a lost season in 2018, even though he almost did rush for 1,000 yards, but he wasn't utilized properly, at least what we are used to seeing David Johnson. But we're all expecting, despite what we are hearing and what people believe, 4 wide, 5 receivers, but David Johnson and his skill set can play big in this offense.
Yeah, I definitely think he's going to be the focal point of the offense, and a lot of that will be running the ball, but Cliff Kingsbury is so creative that he's going to get David Johnson in space, and I think he's going to throw it to him a lot because he knows how dynamic of a talent he is. And when you have a guy like that, you want as a coaching staff to put him in an optimal position to succeed. Last year, we didn't see that enough. He was doing a lot of running in between the tackles, and he's a good runner, but that's not necessarily his biggest strength. What stands out to me is the way he can jump cut and use his stiff arm in the open field, and that's the way you want to use David Johnson in an optimal situation. And I think Cliff Kingsbury, much like how he's going to tailor-make things for Kyler Murray, he's going to do a lot of things where he looks at David Johnson's skill set and create plays to most take advantage of it. And I do think that was missing last year. So I don't question the physical talent in David Johnson, because we saw it in 2015 as a rookie. Obviously, in his breakout 2016, that same guy lurks inside him, and it's just upon the coaching staff and having some playmakers around him to get the attention off of him.
Correct me if I'm wrong. It just seemed to me, looking at Johnson last year, that sometimes it seemed like he was thinking too much. He'd get the ball and then wonder, what do I do next? Whereas now you want your running back or whomever has the ball to just kind of, you get it and you're gone. Not that split second, and we're talking fractions of a second, but it's the difference between a 1-yard gain or a first down.
And it almost feels like he was looking for the big play all the time because they weren't coming too often. So yeah, you're passing up a 6-yard gain because the hole is right there, and then you try to break it outside and you actually lose a yard because you went for the big play. So a lot of that was him probably just feeling like, hey, I'm not putting up big enough numbers. I need to hit the home run, when sometimes if you just keep on hitting those singles, you'll be better in the long run. And that, I think, was a lot of the offensive issues in general. He felt like, hey, we're only scoring 14 points a game. I've got to do something myself. It would be a lot better for him this year if the other guys made plays, and then he wouldn't feel that pressure. He wants to do well, but he has to play within himself for sure.
1,000 rushing yards, 1,000 receiving yards. It's a lofty goal. He certainly was right there on the doorstep a couple of seasons ago. I don't know if you can have it as a goal. I just don't know if it's attainable. And I think I heard it on a recent Underground podcast that maybe, I think it was Darren Urban brought up that perhaps maybe more receiving yards than rushing yards, which I think would kind of blow away everyone's minds.
See, I don't see that happening. I think he'll get 1,000 rushing for sure, provided he stays healthy, because he's going to get enough touches. I just wonder, he's a talented pass catcher. I just don't know how many targets he can get. If he's getting 6-7 catches a game, then yeah, certainly 1,000 yards receiving is doable. But the list of running backs to get 1,000 yards receiving is really low, and he would really have to find his niche quickly in the passing game to do that, more so than just being the emergency option. He's going to have to be really a focal point, 9-10 targets a game in order to get it.
Yeah, and how many times does he line up in the slot, and does that open up something for Chase Edmonds, a TJ Logan, a DJ Foster? And, of course, yeah, health is going to be something that people pay attention to. And, of course, how is the offensive line working as well? Earlier this offseason, Johnson asked about the offense, sounded very excited overall, and then what it's going to mean for him as well.
I think the biggest thing is we got a whole bunch of new faces, new offense, new coaches. It's going to be basically the biggest thing, and then that comes with a new offense as far as the scheme and what we do. And I think it's going to be a lot different because we'll be home in the shotgun, and it'll be more of a spread out offense. It's a more open offense. We got more space out there on the field, and it's a more up-tempo offense.
Of course, we might not need to see Johnson so much as a wide receiver if the Cardinals' 3 rookie wide receivers perform like the Cardinals hope. And as we continue here talking about the offensive takeaways on this edition of Cards Cover 2, you look at Larry Fitzgerald. Yeah, we know what we're going to get. Christian Kirk, to a certain extent, yeah, you know what you're going to get out of him. He was very, very good last season up until the foot injury. But after him, there's question mark, and the Cardinals went out and drafted 3 rookie wide receivers, one on the free agent market, and acquired talent there as well. A lot to like in that wide receiver room. The question is who emerges and who might emerge quicker than the others and have a bigger role on Sundays.
Yeah, and I think with Andy Isabella's skill set, and also you obviously have to look where these guys were drafted. He was the first wide receiver they chose, so obviously they liked him a lot. I think he's the type of guy, knowing what he can do, knowing what Cliff Kingsbury has done in the past, I think he can have a pretty immediate impact. After that, it's hard to know because you see a lot of guys with intriguing traits, and it's just about the ability to convert it to the NFL level. A guy like Hakeem Butler, who ran fast and has this huge frame and huge catch radius, and you feel like if he puts it all together, he could be a really dominant receiver on the outside. But knowing he's still a little bit raw, Keyshawn Johnson is a guy who ran a little bit slower. All he did in college was produce, so he's more of like that gamer type guy who just gets it done. sometimes those guys can get to the NFL and succeed, and sometimes the lack of quickness makes it hard for them because the cornerbacks at this level are so good. So I think those two guys are a little bit wait to be seen. And then a Kevin White isn't a rookie. He's kind of in the same boat, though. He's got these interesting measurables, has never quite put it all together at the NFL level. But if he can unlock that thing, then you start feeling really good about what you can do in the passing game.
Farrell Cooper was acquired via waiver claim late last season, and then Damiere Byrd was an off-season acquisition. 2 more names in that wide receivers room. But when you talk about the 3 young wideouts, Cliff Kingsbury, very excited about all 3.
They're all a work in progress, I'd say. Everyone has different attributes that we're excited about, but we got a long way to go with that group, and they know that, but they've worked hard so far.
It's a good first step for those 3 wide receivers, and of course you can't learn any more than with having a great mentor in that wide receivers room than Larry Fitzgerald. And I go, Ohms, we got a question via Facebook Live concerning what number 11 might mean to these guys both on and off the field.
Yeah, we have a bunch of offensive questions coming in via Facebook Live, and we appreciate that. Rita Trinidad asked just that. How has Larry Fitzgerald been with the mentorship of the young receivers, namely the draft picks?
I think he's been very open as far as willing to answer any and all questions. I know you make a joke about Andy Isabella not communicating at all, but these guys are not afraid to ask questions, and it's nice to have a veteran. And I'll say this, not all veterans around the NFL are as open, but I think Fitz understands where he's at in his career, and then, of course, what he wants this organization to be like once he leaves, that he will take any and all questions from these young guys.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say about the accessibility. Sometimes when you're a future Hall of Famer, A, they have big egos and don't really want to be bothered, or B, if you're getting toward the end of your career, you're worried about your place on the team and still wanting to be the main target, not wanting to help anybody else take your passes. But he's done a great job. It's never been an issue with Larry Fitzgerald. And I think a lot of just the way he works on the field, where he still practices so hard. I mean, he could just take the entire offseason off if he wanted to and travel and do whatever, because everybody knows what he's going to do when the season begins. But he's out there grinding with these young guys and showing them the way it should go. And I think the way they just watch him is very valuable. And then, like you said, they can get those insights, talk to him about life like we talked about, or about a release or the way a cornerback is guarding them. So I think he can all encompass a lot of different things, and he's happy to share that knowledge with them.
Before we move on to the defense, another question coming in via Facebook Live concerning the offense, and particularly the tight ends, a position that I think is a little bit up in the air, not only who makes the team, but just what kind of a role we might see from that tight end group. Yeah,
Kurt Moroni, he asks, what role will the tight end play in Cliff Kingsbury's offense? And it almost seems like it's an afterthought all the time, like we never really talk about tight ends. But I guess the big question is, should we be talking about them, or do you think that it might take a back seat to other things, or do you think you'll be surprised?
I think we can look at the history of Cliff Kingsbury at Texas Tech, and it helps fill that in a little bit. When he had Jay Samaro there, star tight end, he was their leading receiver, and he was used all the time. They threw it to him a bunch. And then after he graduated, he went to the NFL, second-round pick, I think. After that, they didn't really use the tight end because they didn't have anybody that was as good as him or as good as, say, the fourth wide receiver. So I think he's pretty malleable when it comes to who Cliff Kingsbury wants on the field. If your tight end is good enough, he'll play. If he feels like the fourth wideout or the second running back deserves to be on the field, that means less tight ends. So to me, I don't think anything's been decided yet. I think you go to training camp, and if a Charles Clay, a Ricky Seals-Jones, somebody like that shows that they're deserving of playing time, then the tight ends will have the bigger role. If a fourth wideout and the third wideout really excel and you feel like, hey, we're more effective offensively with more wide receivers, then you go that way. So I think it's going to be pretty flexible for at least the first few weeks into camp until they really decide what kind of personnel packages they want to use.
And remember, they used a draft pick on a tight end and UCLA tight end Caleb Wilson, so that alone should tell you at least, well, one, what they think of his talent and then what he might be able to do within this offense. All right, let's switch sides and talk defense. And I know a lot of the offseason, when you talk about the defense, aside from the going back to a 3-4, we're all excited about that, but a lot has been focused on Patrick Peterson, what happens during those 6 games that he will miss due to suspension, and that's something that Darren Urban brought up on his takeaways on azcardinals.com. But a takeaway that I know you, Kyle, had, and I did too, that was not included in Darren's story, and I don't think is getting talked enough about, is the linebackers. And for me, not so much the outside with Chandler Jones and Terrell Suggs, but the inside, Jordan Hicks and Hassan Reddick. And I'm particularly really hoping that this is the season for Reddick. Yeah, he's a former first-round draft pick, so you want him to be successful anyway, but I don't think we've seen just exactly what the Cardinals drafted when they did 13th overall.
We've seen the tiniest flashes from him, and you see the athleticism on, 1 out of every 10 plays where he gets after the quarterback and has this closing speed that is so rare for an inside linebacker, or he does something in coverage, or he has a big hit on somebody, because he's got all these measurables that are so intriguing. And like you said, he hasn't unlocked them quite yet, but we talked to him this offseason, and he seemed really confident, really quietly confident about how he's feeling. You could tell his mind was just running his first couple of years because he played defensive line in college. He was an edge rusher who really just went after the quarterback. Now at inside linebacker, you've got to do coverage. You've got to stop the run more. Sometimes you're used on blitzes, but there's a lot more to the mental part of the game. And if he can figure that out and play faster, I think he can really have a good year and become the guy who they spent that first round pick on. And having Jordan Hicks next to him to help explain what's going on, I think that's going to be a big benefit as well.
And when he spoke talking about Reddick in the locker room, and you were over there and wrote about it on azcardinals.com, just how much Reddick's eyes lit up when Hicks's name was brought up, and just the chemistry that those two have with no background whatsoever, and now all of a sudden Reddick is talking as if they're fast friends and they've known one another for 2 or 3 seasons within this defense, and that they're on such the same page that, okay, that's a huge part of the defense that doesn't get talked enough about, but you're right in the middle. And with Hicks, that's the quarterback of the defense. You're in charge of getting everyone in position.
And we've seen the guys in that position before, guys like Carlos Dansby and Larry Foote, and they did a great job from a cerebral standpoint of understanding what an offense is trying to do to them and then reacting themselves and helping out everybody else. Jordan Hicks does the same thing, but he's 5, 6, 7 years younger than those guys were when they were there at the tail end of their careers. So he has a physical advantage on those guys. If he's at the same point mentally, then you're talking about, at best case scenario, Pro Bowl type inside linebacker. Cardinals obviously had some inside linebacker issues last year, like you were mentioning. And yeah, all of a sudden, if that tandem can live up to the optimism we're hearing right now, I think that just makes the entire defense more solid.
And with Hicks, a lot of it is, well, if healthy. I know he had some injury issues in Philadelphia, but the other point that needs to be brought up is him coming to the Cardinals reunites him with his former defensive coordinator in Philadelphia, and that is Bill Davis, now the linebackers coach with the Cardinals. So that is helping out as well as far as Hicks's his assimilation here with the Cardinals, to where he doesn't feel like so much of a new guy, but that he's been here for so long. Recently, on an episode of the Coaches Chronicle podcast, defensive coordinator Vance Joseph talked up both Hicks and Reddick.
He is my voice on the field. He's a very, very bright guy, so I'm happy we've got him because, he's a young player also. When healthy, he's a really, really good player, so he's been impressive. As far as how much he can retain and process, on every play. He's getting guys lined up. He makes every call for us. So he's definitely a good get for us.
How does that just help a guy like Hassan Reddick, who's still developing as a player and coming into form?
Hassan's been very impressive as far as knowing what to do. He's obviously a physical freak as far as movement and running and hitting and those things, but his football IQ has gotten so much better in the last 3 or 4 months, so I'm excited to watch him play. His better years are ahead of him, and you can see it happening right now.
Again, a lot to like about the Cardinals moving into the 2019 season. Of course, we'll all know for certain once games are played beginning in September. As we continue here on this Monday afternoon, as we broadcast Cards Cover 2 from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, and doing so in our Bose QC35s. Go to Bose.com for more information. A reminder, if you ever miss a show, you can download as a podcast via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play Music, TuneIn, and SoundCloud. And don't forget, all of your favorite Cardinals podcasts can be found at azcardinals.com/podcasts. All right, let's hear more from David Johnson about David Johnson. He shares with azcardinals.com how much weight he can squat and what motivates him to be his best in this latest episode of Groundwork.
David Johnson, going into year 5, and I play running back. What pushed me to be at my best, first off, is my family. And then second off, love of the game. Love playing football and, love competing and trying to get an advantage over the defenders. Health and fitness is very, very important for me, especially now that I'm getting older. I love squatting, it's probably my favorite. I love lifting, I'm a gym rat for sure. My max was probably my sophomore year of college. It was at 620. I should have did more. Coach wouldn't let me do more. He said it's no point. I started at a young age, actually, probably about 5th grade, 6th grade. I started working out, and I kind of fell in love with it, being able to just lift weights and put more weight on the bar and really just outlift people and compete in another aspect of life. Paying attention to every little thing, the details, footwork, everything, technique. Right now is so huge for us because once the bullets start flying, once we get on the, in the game, it really becomes innate, where it's second nature. And you don't want to be, you want it to be kind of something ingrained in you. So when it comes to that, you don't have to think so hard. And that's the reason why we work so hard on the details, the little things right now.
Can squat 620. That's a high number, and he mentioned he needed to be kicked out of the weight room in college. He actually has had to be kicked out of the weight room here with the Cardinals as well. Buddy Morris, the strength and conditioning coach with the Cardinals, I remember him telling a story that he, especially when Johnson was injured, he had to really pull the reins back on Johnson because all he wants to do, and a lot of these guys are the same way, you want to keep working because that means improving. Yet sometimes, and we all forget this, at least those of us that do work out on a somewhat regular basis, your body does need to rest.
Yeah, it's good, but it's always, that's the preferred scenario, is trying to pull him out of the gym instead of pushing him in, and he's always been like that since he got here, obviously since college. Man, 620?
Yeah, that's...
I could probably squat like a tenth of that.
I'm right there with, yeah. I'll go with that.
I could do 62 pounds.
I won't ask you to prove it. I'll just.
I set the bar really low.
There you go. Yeah. If you set the bar low, then you can reach it.
I think that's actually the weight of the bar.
Right.
I can squat the bar.
Before we hear from the Bird Gang here on this Monday afternoon, your questions via social media and Facebook Live using the hashtag CardsCover2, using the number 2 to get involved in the show. Need to let everyone know that the next episode of Cardinals Flight Plan debuts this week. In fact, it's coming up on Thursday. It's Episode 8, titled Summer School. Here's a sneak peek. Players and coaches were in front of the cameras today. That's right, it was media day.
They didn't give nobody a warning with this one. This was a shocker, coming in here and putting on makeup.
Still photos, headshots, candid shots, and then, of course, videos.
I thought we were just taking some pictures.
This summer and this August are really the most critical time for this personnel department in a long time. We have to make sure that we are dialed in and everything is lined up perfectly.
Here we go! First stone! We got huge ace. Get in your stance, let's go, get in your stance. We got nasty over here, nasty.
Number 1 claim is awesome, dude.
We've had a lot of success in the past when we had late summer signings. So there are players out there that we can find that's going to make this football team better. So we are going to continue to try to put gas on the fire.
Hey, just wait on it. Just wait on it.
Love that last scene there. Chandler Jones and Kyler Murray walking out to practice. By the way, if you've missed any of the previous episodes of Cardinals Flight Plan, you can go to azcardinals.com/flight plan. All right, without further ado, let's hear from the Bird Gang. Your questions via social media and Facebook Live. Again, Kyle Odegard in for Mike Jurecki and producer Jim Alejandro with those questions here on this Monday afternoon.
A lot of good participation on Facebook Live. Michael Nikes, like the shoe. It could be Nikes, but he wants to know, we were talking about tight ends earlier, he wants to know if 7th-round draft pick Caleb Wilson, Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick in the draft, do you think he has a chance at the final roster? Obviously, he's proved that he can catch the football. How much will that help him in this offense here?
I certainly think, Kyle, he's got a chance, especially with his pass-catching ability. The question is, how many tight ends does this team keep? And you brought up Charles Clay and Ricky Seals-Jones. And don't forget, Max Williams was brought in as well, more of a blocking tight end. So if he doesn't make the initial roster, I could certainly see him on the practice squad.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think it would be very much on the bubble type scenario, and it seems like the most likely number there is probably 3 tight ends, even though they've gone with 4 or 5 in the past under different coaches. Not as much of a need there. So if he plays well in camp, could definitely see him on. And like you said, practice squad option if he doesn't make it. But if he plays well in the preseason and doesn't make it, then you open yourself up to waiver claims. And if any other team wants him, then you have to let him go if you try to put him on the practice squad. So if he shows enough, then maybe you do keep him on the active roster in order to let him progress and then maybe use him as an impact piece after that.
Well, we move from one position that's often not talked about, that's tight end, to another one that seems to be neglected a few times. That's special teams. Sam Gordon wants to know, who are the candidates for punt return and kick return?
Well, a lot of that does depend on who makes the 53, but Farrell Cooper is a guy who was actually an all-pro kick returner with the Rams, so he makes a ton of sense as the kick returner if he's on the roster. Demare Byrd is another guy who has punt and kick return ability. Christian Kirk at this point, if you want him to be your punt returner, he showed he can do it. He was really impressive at it last year. My question would be, is he so involved offensively this year that you don't want to risk injury like you've done with Patrick Peterson in the past, trying to keep him off it? If Cooper or Byrd are on the roster, to me it makes sense to use those guys back there. But Christian Kirk is such a good punt returner that it also wouldn't surprise me if he's in that role.
TJ Logan, another name, because he was going to be your punt returner his rookie year. He made that very, very clear during the preseason. Unfortunately, he got hurt in the preseason. We haven't seen him, didn't see him at all his rookie year, and then he's kind of been that guy that's almost kind of gotten lost in the shuffle of things, especially not only in special teams, but in the running back room as well.
And their special teams blocking was so good last year. Christian Kirk did well at punt returns. Whoever's going to be back there, Jeff Rodgers is a really good special teams coach, and he's going to give them opportunities. If you can break a touchdown in the special teams game, that's so huge. So I think it's important to figure out who your most lethal kick and punt returners are, and then you do have some good options with the guys we mentioned.
We got 2 more from Facebook Live. Aurelio Trinidad wants to know, other than Kyler Murray, which rookie do you have your eye on in camp?
I'll go with the one that we haven't talked about yet on this show, and that's Zach Allen, because I think he is going to play a lot along the defensive line because there's not much depth behind the 3 starters that you have right now. And if he can just equal a quarter of the production he had at Boston College, I think the Cardinals have found someone.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. A guy I'm very interested in is Andy Isabella because of his ability to catch the ball on short routes, also go deep because of his elite speed. Also, if you're trying to do jet sweeps, he's a guy that can really stress a defense. You've seen the Rams do it a bunch in this division where they bring guys, and if you're a linebacker, you're naturally watching that guy. And even if they use Andy Isabella and hand the ball off, or even if they don't and it's just a decoy, that can set up other things. So I think he's an important piece of this offense, and if he can get things clicking right away, that's an important guy. You've got Fitz, you've got Christian Kirk, but you need that third wide receiver to emerge. And to me, his skill set is perfect for what they want to do offensively.
And the final question comes from Victor Para. He wants to know, if you had to guess, how do you think Kyler Murray's reps will shake out in preseason games?
See, this is where MJ and I disagree because I think he needs to play. I understand that you don't want him getting hurt, but you're a rookie at the most important position, and he needs to get experience. He needs game reps. He needs to play.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how much he'll play or should play, but I don't want this 1 series and out, 2 series and out, 1 quarter and then out. No, you need to get, even if it's against second and third team defenses. But that's me, and I'm probably in the minority on that.
No, I would err toward playing him more as well. I mean, you understand the downsides of it, and if Kyler Murray gets hurt in the preseason, there's going to be an avalanche of criticism if you keep him in the game longer than, like you said, a quarter. But there's no substitute for experience.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
I think I'm with you. I would play him more. I have a feeling, they're not going to want to, knowing that he's certainly projected to be the week 1 starter, and they want to make sure he's healthy. But I think you want those reps. There's so many young receivers, young quarterback. I think all that stuff is very valuable. So I agree with you. I'd like to see him play a lot. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Does Kyler's familiarity with this type of offense maybe change the thinking on that?
That helps a little bit.
Yeah,
I think personnel-wise,
it gets back to the timing, though.
Yeah,
because
chemistry with receivers, speed of the game.
But
I agree with you.
There's the other aspect in this that everyone has kept things so close to the vest about this offense. How much do you show? And to me, it doesn't matter because eventually it's going to come out, and maybe you steal a game, or into the second game is week 2 against Baltimore, but. These guys need to play.
I just sent an email to Cliff. He responded. He said, "We'll see." So
yeah. I don't think we're going to get anything definitive.
Yeah, probably not.
But it's an interesting question for sure.
Yeah, it certainly will be debated throughout training camp and into the preseason. Appreciate the Bird Gang sounding off here on this Monday afternoon. Again, your questions using the hashtag CardsCovered2, hashtag CardsCovered2. We'll do it again on Wednesday, and just maybe we'll be doing it again with Kyle or K3 here on Cards Covered 2.
We'll see how the review goes.
Okay. We'll see.
We'll watch the tape.
We'll see.
Yeah.
So we got
K3.
All right. Well, if we've done enough here on the show to get Kyle to come back, we'll have to wait and see on that for Wednesday's show. And with that, we'll say so long for now. Special thanks to everyone behind the scenes. Tim Delaney, Jim Omohundro, Devin Henry, Jackson Sipes. For K3, Kyle Odegard, I'm Craig Grialou. This has been Cards Covered 2.